about to go live on Workshops for Moms, January 24th. Okay. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mama Genius Hub podcast / mom workshop for moms today. We are coming to you live with a panel talking about mom self-image. Now, the reason why we chose this topic today is it's right after the New Year's. I don't know how many of you have made New Year's resolutions, how many of you are still sticking to them, how many of you have gone somewhere else with them. And then a lot of it comes back down to shame. Why didn't I do that? Why do I feel this way about my body? And we just start being so mean to ourselves. We get those thoughts in our heads and we start beating ourselves up. So we wanted to bring a group of moms together who've been through it, who've been there with you. And if you're thinking those right now, we are going to have some ideas for you today let's join together and get rid of some of that. So some of the panelists that I brought on for you today, we have Vicki Beinecke. Vicki is a former education teacher with a master's in education. After a personal health crisis, she became a certified naturopath, helping clients eliminate causes of ill health. In Vicki's experience, trapped emotions are the root of many imbalances in your body, and we'll get to that today. We have Josie Freeborn. Josie specializes in coaching mom entrepreneurs, nurturing their sales confidence, breaking through the limiting beliefs, and helping them discover their unique superpowers. We all need that. Her integrative approach in business and wellness draws from her certification as a reflexology and holistic healthcare practitioner. We also have Catalina. Catalina is committed to sharing the importance of sleep with all human beings, especially moms, so they can live, work, and love from a space of vitality, equanimity, and wholeheartedness. Rebecca Prouse. Rebecca helps homeschool moms uplevel their wellness, mentality, emotional, and physically, so they can experience more clarity, energy, and peace while raising their children. And we have Ren Roberts. Ren is a transformative business coach, certified in mindset tools, silent counseling, and Be Set Fast Free Fast. As a creator and CEO of Financial Freedom and Joy, she teaches women tech skills to be successful online entrepreneurs. So we've gathered all these wonderful women. Thank you, moms, for joining me today so we can discuss this topic of self-image. Let's just dive right in. And Josie, I'm going to throw it right to you because right before this call, you kind of like led the ball, and we're going to piggyback off of that, and we're going to let you get started.
All right. Well, one of the biggest things about self-image that I have actually had to work through for myself, and now it's something that I actually help the moms who I work with in coaching to be aware of, is the way we talk to ourselves about ourselves. So I always say it's the story that we tell ourselves about our image, about our body. There's little people listening and little people watching. And most of the time, in my experience, I would do something, as well as the other moms that I work with, for our children before we do something for ourselves, which we could talk about that probably at another one of our chats here. But our kids are constantly watching what we're doing and hearing what we say. So the biggest thing in mom body, mom self-image, mom self-care even, is to recognize that our children are watching us. So we really can choose our words, choose our actions, and choose that integrative part of it with our children by incorporating them in and allowing them to see the real of us, but also including that positive mindset for them to be modeled after, because children imitate and they hear what we say and do all the time.
I want to open that up to the rest of the panelists, so feel free to jump right in.
Yeah, this is Vicki. So I wholeheartedly agree. Now, it's been a moment since I've been raising my children. So my children are now having children. And so, thinking back as a young mother, not being fully really aware of how impactful some of those actions and thoughts that I had toward myself was impacting on my sons. But now that I'll be a grandmother next month, I'm so excited. I'm wiser, I'm older, and I'm very, excited about this new journey and being a role model for my new granddaughter and showing her the inner strength, the inner power that she has. And yeah, it's so important to realize what you're saying and doing in front of little ones, whether you think they're watching or not, they are.
Oh, this is Ren Roberts, and I have such an important kind of piggyback with this on self-image. And so I became a mom a little different, and I adopted foster children. And so when I had three siblings, they were full siblings, come into my home, one of the interesting things about self-image was their mother, presumably, as well as the foster families, were so tied with their self-image about what they ate that the 10-year-old could barely eat like a plate, like she would eat the tiniest little bird portion. And then she was so concerned, I mean, talked all the time about gaining weight, and she was this thin little stick. And then the 5-year-old brother, when he would eat, every time after he would eat, he would lift up his shirt to inspect his abs to see if he was fat. So it was like, holy smokes, like this is how the kids came to me at that. And it's like, this is stuff that's mimicked. They'll also look at where it's ingrained. And so that's where, as the other panelists were mentioning, our self-image is so important. And those little beings are watching everything.
I want to jump in. This your host, Michelle, coming at you. When I started looking at the way that I was eating, and I was always worried about, how that would affect the family or what, when I just started making those changes, all of a sudden my kids start looking at nutrition labels. And it wasn't even me telling them to look at them. It wasn't like, it was just because I was like, why is mommy doing these things? Why is she not eating this with us? And they start asking the whys to themselves. And then they start asking me, well, mommy, why aren't you eating this? Why are you doing it this way? Why do you have a smoothie for breakfast? Why are you eating all these vegetables and doing things a little bit differently? Because I think a lot of it was out of habit. Like I just had certain things in the house. You just kind of get used to eating certain things. And it was just like, I'll make a quesadilla or I'll make a bagel. And I didn't realize, thinking about it, how it was. So I started actually paying attention. And when I started just making more of a routine over a smoothie for breakfast, and then a salad or a vegetable omelet for lunch are pretty much my staples right now during the weekdays. So like, but then still indulge, right now we just went on dinner, but it's like when you create those habits in a mix of it, it becomes easier. Cause I was like, all of a sudden, like, I couldn't do these things before until like they just became habits. And then the kids start looking at the cereals that they eat, going, okay, well, we made a compromise. Like they'll have cereal once a week instead of every single day. And like, just making that, it's not that we can't have these things. It's about thinking the mindset behind it and how we do it and why we're doing it, rather than just mindlessly doing these things, but setting ourselves up to have those conversations. And again, when they start seeing you do it, even if it takes a little bit of a while, they're going to start asking questions. So why are you doing it a little bit differently now? And then make some choices for themselves. My son is he's growing microgreens right now, trying to be healthier things, making sure I have more stuff to put in the smoothies, things like that. And so they really watch what we do.
Michelle,
This is Rebecca. Oh, sorry, Josie.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
I was just going to add in, thank you. Piggybacking a little bit on what Josie was talking about of our own self-talk, our negative self-talk. We may not even say it out loud, but what we're thinking inside affects how we're able to show up and our energy. So if we're having a negative reel going on about how we're thinking about ourselves, it's only going to drag your energy down, and that's going to be felt from the children too. And eventually that would come out of it's likely to come out of your mouth, right? But the other part too is the image you have of yourself and beliefs that you may be taking on from what the world is saying. So there could be certain things about pregnancy or after pregnancy, or when you reach a certain age, that something happens to everybody, but it doesn't really happen to everybody. So really being aware of what you may be adopting as beliefs that don't have to be true. So that's just another aspect I wanted to bring in on how you view yourself.
Josie, what did you want to add?
Yes, actually, I wanted to kind of along the line with what Rebecca was saying too, but along the line of our children, and you were talking about smoothies, and it made me think that when my son was 3 years old, he started making smoothies because it was something that I did. After I had him, I actually had a very serious postpartum anxiety that really took me down with my own image, and so I had to work really hard to get out of that. And little did I realize that at 3 years old, my little guy was already developing those habits. So it starts really, really young. A lot of times moms think, oh, they're still little. They're not listening. They're not paying attention. He became the little smoothie maker. He said, I made my smoothie, mama. And he knew how to do it because I modeled it for him and included them. And one of the biggest things is to include our children into what we do for our daily habits. And oftentimes what Rebecca was saying, what we're thinking, our kids actually pick up on that without us even knowing. Our thoughts, it's like we're connected somehow, right, to those people. And so if we can actually incorporate them into what we're doing with our own daily habits, we're actually setting the foundation for them. So like what Ren was saying, they grow up to actually have those healthy habits. Just because they're little doesn't mean they're not creating their own habits. So why not model for them the good habits? And that's really good motivation as a mom to say, I'm doing it for my kid. My little boy said to me once, Mom, your body's a little puffy. Maybe you should work out a little bit. That was about a year or so ago. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I do need to, work on myself a little bit more. Let's do it together. Instead of getting mad at him saying, what do you mean you're calling me puffy?
I love that so much. I mean, that really brings us back to who we are. And it really is that modeling that we do for our kids because they really do see it. And I always tell my kids, like, I didn't necessarily have the great habits and like, so I have a whole bunch of habits to unlearn versus if you guys just start off with the good habits, you just keep going. It's not like you're going to have to unlearn anything later. And they're like, oh, that's a good way of looking at it. And then it makes them think a little bit more. So throwing that out to them. So I'm going to jump around a little bit because we kind of talked a little bit about the New Year's resolution idea a little bit. And I know some people may have set some people might have hate the thought of them and not want to do it. So I want to kind of reshape it a little bit in terms of how we think about our bodies and in terms of how we even think about resolutions, because I want us to look at the idea of when we make a goal, what is the reason behind it? And so what I'm trying to reshape it to be is what feeling do we want more of? Because whenever we make a goal, say we want a new house, right? But it's not necessarily the new house we want. We want the feeling of grand when we walk in the house, the cleanness, the bigness of it. Like we're looking for some sort of feeling behind it. And the same thing comes back to self-body, to our self-image. What image do we want about our body? What feeling do we want to have about our body? Then we can start to make the goals based on achieving that feeling. Because when we actually look at it, it might be just a little bit different than we thought. Because losing 10 pounds might make us look different, but would that actually make you feel? And that's what you're looking for. And so when we're thinking about self-image, what feelings do we want? So who wants to add to that?
I would like to add to that. And from the point of view that, and this is something I've been talking in my posts lately about what your dreams are, and how many times those dreams are disconnected to your goals. And in the same way, how many times our goals are totally disconnected with what you just said, our true feelings. And I want to say that a lot of what happens with mom bodies is that there is a disconnection with our bodies. And I know from my own experience that when I gave birth the first time, I have a C-section. And the second time, I also had a C-section. And I remember those things happening, but not really feeling anything into those things. So I had these 2 C-sections. And then the wave of motherhood came and I was busy raising my babies and never, ever thought back to what had happened. I mean, a C-section is a major surgery. I mean, right? You're like, a lot of things happen in your body, but I never connected any kind of feelings or I didn't attach any feelings or thoughts to it or sensations to it. And it was years later when my oldest was 19 and I started practicing yoga and mindfulness and embodiment practices. And in one of those practices, when you say you breathe, and often you're cueing to follow your breath, right? Where the breath is taking you, and feel into your body if you have any sensation. And for the longest time, every time I was cueing to that, all sensations went to my C-section scar. And I started to feel things about my scar that I had never felt. I didn't feel those sensations after I gave birth or, postpartum, or while I was healing during the week after the C-section, or even 24 hours after the C-section. I felt nothing. But I felt those years later because somehow I believe there had been a disconnect. I had kind of disconnected from my body going through that experience of having a C-section. And of course, my mind had rationalized this like everything went well, the baby's fine, I'm fine, and we're okay, right? But obviously, I had never paid attention to what my body had to say about this. So years later, when I was doing all this mindfulness and yoga and embodiment practices, it was all about feeling into this scar that was there, and it was achy and tingling, and there was some kind of burning sensations, and I felt a lot of sensations in my womb that I had not felt all those years at all. So I think when we become mothers, our bodies change in so many ways that at some point it's just easy just to disconnect. Not because we want not to address, but sometimes it's just the busyness of being a mother doesn't allow for us to have time to spend time just being in our body. And all of a sudden we're looking into the mirror and we feel that what we see is not us, or we cannot connect or make a connection with who we are and what we see in the mirror. And I think that is so related to the feeling. So it's so hard to say, oh, I'm going to connect my goal to the feeling that I feel in my body. But if I'm not connected to my body, there's no feeling to connect to. So I believe that as we become mothers, these embodiment practices are so important to stay connected to our bodies and to what our bodies are telling us, and feeling into what our bodies are telling us. As you said, as we think of goals or things that we want to have for ourselves and our family. But sometimes it is hard because, first of all, we have disconnected from our body. And by being disconnected from our bodies, we're not connected to our feelings anymore. So that's what I want to share about that. I know that in my own experience, embodiment practices and yoga and mindfulness have helped me a lot reconnect with my body. And by doing that, I have reconnected to my feelings. And by doing that, I have to be able to, when setting a goal or looking into the future of the things that I want for myself and my family, I can feel more into it. And I
Does
think
anyone want to add to that?
I can totally relate with that, Catalina, because this is Vicky, by the way. I too had 2 C-section deliveries. And you're right. I mean, you just go right into mommy mode and you do what you need to do. And you don't realize, or in my experience, I didn't process what actually happened in my body. So I think the young mothers out there, to be okay with having this self-awareness. It is so important to recognize your emotions and, talk to someone about it. Talk to another woman who has had, for example, a C-section or whatever that you have gone through, so that you can discuss that and talk about it. Because I think we as women, we process a lot through conversation, through discussion. And when we hold it inside, it's not good, you know, and then we just kind of stuff it down until, like you were saying, Catalina, years later, it surfaces when you start doing some inner work and some self-awareness and mindfulness. So, you know, reach out to other women in your community that you can relate with and share your experiences, be a support system. I think that's so, so very important.
I'm totally with you. This is Ren Roberts, and on how you want to feel and tying all that in, it's like there's so much of that disconnect that's what the other panelists were, like, so when you start to connect, like sometimes, like I remember years back when I was on a personal growth thing, I realized that I numbed. And so numbed my emotions, numbed like how I felt about my body or the drama, all of that things. And so that's where like realizing numbing is an emotion and then saying, I don't want to feel that anymore. And then when you turn that off, holy smokes, then you feel everything positive and negative. So then it's like that regulation. And so I think there's just that humanness in us. And I really love how Michelle's bringing out, how do you want to feel? And like, that's where I stand for the joy. And like, a lot of us have the idea like parenthood is going to be so grand, and then we get in it and I'm like, oh my goodness, you feel so many more emotions than you ever have felt in your whole life. And so like just holding those things, and the bigger thing is holding your peace. Like, and I've thought of myself like one of those, so sometimes almost like a punching bag, though it's like boing and then it comes back up, boing. And so that's what the emotions, how do you want to feel peace of mind? And just keep coming back to that. And all of these techniques are just so you feel more peace.
Yeah, this is Josie Freeborn popping in here on that, and that emotion, bringing it right back to how we feel and how we want to feel. I have two comments on that. I know, Michelle, when you had mentioned it, bringing back that feeling of the feeling that we actually want. One is looking at it, and I'm a sales professional, so I look at it also from that, like when I give a feature of whatever it is that, you know, I might have been selling in my past and a benefit of how this is great, there's also the benefit of that benefit, which is the feeling. And so I look at a lot of what I do and when I talk with my fellow moms is, what is that feeling that you want to have? Rather than just that, like, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to have a flat tummy, or I want to be very healthy, or I want to have a lot of energy. That's great. But when you achieve that, what is that feeling that you're going to have, so that you can actually embody that feeling inside of you even before you have that result? Because the feeling and our own belief, that belief, we can say something and not believe it, and not, if you believe in manifestation and things, and not have that happen. But it's what you truly believe in and feel. That's what's going to dictate how you actually do your actions to achieve those goals. And one of the things with our body, with our image, with our own emotional wellness, our minds have a lot of power over our physical part of our body as well, is to come at ourselves from a place of love. I know, Ren, you said joy, right? Joy, happiness, that good feeling. But not only that, but love. And so many times we come at our mom bodies as, oh, I should have done this, or I didn't do that. And we're very negative on ourselves. And so one of my colleagues had passed, she had told me, you know, Josie, you got to come at it from a point of love for your body. And my first response years ago was, yeah, but right now I don't love my body. Oh my God, I like myself. I love my children, but I don't love my body. And she says, but listen, you need to change the story you're telling yourself, which fits right into the things that I do now in my business. But by loving the body, I was able to release, not lose, to release the weight, to release the extra emotional weight, which in turn also release that extra physical weight. And so my message here is to come at it not from a place of, I need to be more like this, or I should be like this. Don't shit on yourself, that we always say, but come at it from a place of love and from joy. And those positive emotions will actually help you manifest that feeling that we all need to come back to.
This is Michelle. I want to piggyback on that, Josie, in terms of when we are picturing that end result, the more specific we can get with that feeling and picturing. So if it was 10 pounds you want to lose, what are you actually doing in the day that you look at that scale? So like, are you looking at that scale? Are you giving yourself a reward? Like, what is it that is inside of you that you want on that moment when you achieve that? And we focus on that vision and that feeling as specifically as we can, the more we can create that, the more we create it into our reality. And so really getting deep and dive into those, and that's the hardest part, because all of a sudden you're like, I can't do that. I don't want to think about it. It's not going to happen. And then that's when the beliefs come into be. So just the more you can start being curious about it and saying, what is it that I really want? And what am I doing when I actually receive it? How am I feeling? And the more specific you can paint that picture, the more likely it is to happen. Well, it's going to happen. Let's put it that way. Because it will. If you create that picture and you keep focusing on it, the more detailed you can get, the more it's going to happen. It's already happened. You've created it in your mind. You're just making it reality now.
It's a little bit like the manifestation starts in your body, right?
Right.
Like leading
Exactly.
with what you feel in your body to be able to manifest. I like that.
And so on that, as we're talking about that, one of the things I want to bring up and ask you panelists is, for me, it always was, I didn't realize as soon as you become a mom, you start making decisions based on what your needs and your feelings of that moment, right? Now, not that it's good or bad, but a lot of times we're like, oh, I'm too tired to do this, so I'm just going to say no. And so then you start just saying no to all these things. And all I want to point out is that those no's start to shape who you are a year, 2 years later. And again, we're a lot of times, I'm not trying to say anything, but moms in with the young kids, you are in that survival mode. And some of you might not realize the no's that you're making right now are just going to shift who you are. And all I want to point out is making those choices with that conscious knowledge that it's going to change something down the line. So we want to talk a little bit about that decision making in terms of what we're eating, in terms of how we're being and taking care of ourselves. Because if we're just saying we're too tired, we don't have the time for it, we can't do that. Again, make those choices, but know that again, all choices we have some kind of results or things at the end of them. And so I didn't notice in motherhood, the more I started saying no, all of a sudden that's when, for me, I woke up 5 years later going, I was in this fog. I didn't quite know what happened. I didn't know who I was anymore. I lost my identity. And as I look back in retrospect, I realized that it's because of those no's. And so I just want to bring out that conversation to get some of your experiences so we can just make conscious decisions that we decide, I really am too tired for this. I need self-care tonight. I can't do this. But if it was just because I was being lazy or didn't feel like it and getting out would make me feel better. So it's making those distinctions between things as we become those new moms, and how do we filter those through? So I'm going to throw that out to you, all of you wonderful panelists.
I can totally relate to that. This is Rebecca. I had a similar situation. I started to want to save time because I had 4 children. I'm homeschooling. I have all these things going on. I'm going to save time. And I said no to some things. I thought I was saving time and energy. But in the long run, I actually said no to some things that I believe would have rejuvenated me and actually given me some energy. I mean, maybe I needed to shift my outlook on it a little bit, but I needed, what I would encourage moms to do is be intentional on those activities that are self-nurturing. And maybe there needs to be a shift, but not to eliminate them, because you 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road going, what happened? I never intended to totally let go of those things. And then you can begin to feel depleted. So to really pay attention to some of those things that definitely bring energy back to you and who you are.
I would like to add, my name is Alana. Hi, and I'm sorry I'm cooking. I just got home from a farm competition with my daughter, and we've got a ton of family here, so we're just cooking dinner, so I apologize. But so self-care is important because we are showing our kids how to treat ourselves, and we are showing our kids that self-care is important, keeping our bodies and our minds and rejuvenating them gets us to be more fun. And when we're playful, we learn so much faster. Like in anything, if you're making it playful and fun, you learn it like exponentially faster. I want to say there's 12 times that you need to repeat something to learn it when you're being playful, and like 1,000 times when you're not being playful. So, and that's for the, I just went through a course and that's kind of what they told me. But anyway, so being playful, even though it's the same kind of, you have a choice. It's like, no, I have to be a parent. I have to be this strict and I have to have this mindset for being a parent. But then it's like, well, what if you're a fun parent? What if you're going to be playful? And what if you're going to be crazy? And what if you're going to be just like, oh my gosh, and be playful, and your kids will learn that. They'll take life easier. They won't take things as seriously. It's like, oh, well, that's unfortunate, or that's a little oopsie, you know? It's like, yeah, everything spilled in the kitchen. Okay, that's a little oopsie. Let's finger paint first, and then we'll clean it up, kind of thing, you know? So you're bonding and you're incorporating everything and your bonding experience with kids. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for popping in, Alana, and giving us your 2 cents. Brought her in. So that's what happens when we have some guests in the audience. Come join us and get to share in the conversation as we're doing this. And again, we're also looking at the things we say yes to as well. So it's not just the no's, it's really the decision making. Because sometimes as moms, we feel like we have to say yes to every school invitation. We have to say yes because we think we need to do all these things. So it's finding that rhythm. And again, I hate, as many of you know, I hate the word balance, because when I have that balance, we're feeling like there's equal pressures on the thing. So we're trying to find the rhythm that leads us to the feelings we want more of. And so it's really finding that rhythm between our yeses and our nos, but it's making conscious yes and nos, not just deciding because I'm just too tired, I can't do this. Well, great. If you're that tired, then maybe you do need to do some self-care that night. Or maybe you do need to pick up and go, okay, well, maybe it is time to go see this one friend because having a small intimate conversation with her will rejuvenate me when I come back. And I shouldn't be too lazy to just sit there and watch TV and do that. But again, these are just suggestions, just ideas for you to start shifting your thinking into, is this a good yes for me? Is this a bad no for me? Like it's just being conscious and more aware of why you are doing things. And that's what we're all about, because we get into that survival mode with kids and we let all of that just overwhelm us. And so we just take one decision at a time and just sit for it with a second going, what do I actually need right now?
I agree with what you're saying. This is Catalina speaking, and I just saw in the chat that Joseph mentioned boundaries, and that's a word that was coming in my mind as well. And how difficult when we become mothers, especially how difficult is to set boundaries. And I don't know if it's a motherhood thing, but it's like all boundaries disappear when you become a mother. It's like an invasion of everything, physical, mental, emotional invasion of yourself, and working towards recreating those boundaries again is a whole process that starts with what we just been saying since the beginning, right? Feeling into our bodies, being in our bodies, and listening to what our bodies are saying. I talk to many moms, and I talk about rest and sleep, and I hear a lot of moms saying, "Not now. I'm too busy now. I'm too busy raising my kids. I will rest later. I will sleep better later. I will go into a retreat later." And that's when you see that those boundaries have been they are totally gone, right? Because there is no space for self, right? That space is taken over by everything around us, our children mainly. And when that happens, we will inevitably run into burnout. And as I tell many mothers, when you are in burnout, there is nothing of you to give to others. There's nothing of you to give to your children because you are empty. Right. And I know that sometimes with depression, and someone's going through depression, feeling that they are not noticed or loved or recognized for what they do, is basically that they are so tired, and being so tired makes you feel really, really lonely, right? So a lot of re-establishing those boundaries had to come from self and from feeling into our own bodies what is a yes and what is a no, and go by that feeling rather than by that what we should do or what people expect us to do.
We have a comment from the audience from Cheyenne. She said, so true. Some people take advantage of you if you say yes often. You offer an inch and they take a mile. That is when boundaries are important and confident with your decisions and stand behind it. So true. But as we talk about boundaries, I want to throw this question out to you, panelists, because we're talking about the self and how we perceive ourselves and our body image and stuff. So how do we apply the boundaries to that to help us create more of that positive image?
This is Vicky. I think it really starts with, again, becoming more self-aware, making time for you, and just starting with 10 minutes, just 10 minutes a day, finding that little slice of time where you can meditate, do a mindful meditation, go in so that you know what, like Catalina was saying, what a yes feels like in your body, what a no feels like in your body. I know for me, I'm very intuitive and I pick up on other people's energy. So I was not able to really disconnect in a way just to feel, what does Vicky feel like? I could feel my sons, I could feel my husband, I could feel everyone else, but making time for me just to, okay, what do I need right now in this moment, in this 10 little moment of my day? What do I need? And so then when you're able to connect and be more aware of yourself, then, because that's different for everyone. What is good for me may not be good for you. Maybe you need drawing. Maybe you need a walk in the park. Maybe you need some exercise. Maybe you need to talk with a friend. But you won't know that if you just keep busy, 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 busy all the time and not making that little self-awareness time for you. So just start with just 10 minutes a day, I think, is a good place to start with that.
Yeah, Josie Freeborn here. I really believe that, again, I'm going to come back. It seems to be my topic of the night, is that modeling, because so many moms that I've worked with, in my say past life, but prior to working with the current moms who I work with, I was working with moms who had been dealing with postpartum anxiety, postpartum conditions, and helping them learn how to overcome them, how to manage them. And one of the biggest things is saying, I don't have time. I can't do that. I can't find the time. I can't make the time. And so when we're in that mom moment, oftentimes we really think that it's so hard to find 10 minutes a day, much less 2 minutes a day. And what I've learned through somebody telling me this many years ago, and I've modeled that now in my behavior with the moms who I work with, is, again, our children are watching us. So if we don't take that 10 minutes a day, or 5 minutes even, or 3 minutes to step outside and take a deep breath when our kids are having a meltdown, of course, keeping a watchful eye that they're safe, but we're modeling to our children that their self-care doesn't matter, that they don't need to take care of themselves. So when they become teenagers and then adults, they're going to have the same problems. And so everything that I do with even my own parenting is, in the back of my head, I have, what would my son or daughter see right now? So for me to take that 10 minutes, and sometimes, guys, we have to be creative. I go to the bathroom. My kids think it takes me 10 minutes to go pee, but it doesn't. I'm in there for myself, taking some deep breaths, maybe just saying, I need quiet for a minute. And when they were really little, I would put them in their little bouncy chair, because, the whole thing, moms can never have a shower. No, I put them in their bouncy chair and put them in there with me, of course, making sure that they're safe, but we can become creative with finding ways to be with ourselves, with our children still around. It doesn't have to mean I need to go out for a night with my girlfriends, although that's super important. But again, that modeling, my children now know, Mom, I need to take 5 minutes They're 10 and 11 now. I need to take 5 minutes to myself. My daughter might be crying because something's bothering her. And, our natural thing as moms is to go and save them and try to help them. But to be okay with, I need 5 minutes to myself. Or, Mom, can you walk me through a meditation? Mom, can you hold my hands and breathe with me? I was so proud in that moment because I didn't know that growing up. My mom hid. She didn't, it was always on the ball, always had to be so good. And so the importance of taking, like Vicky said, that 10 minutes, that care for yourself actually is important in not only our own personal care, but modeling. And don't be afraid, again, to include the children in that in a way that still gives you the opportunity to breathe, because sometimes you just can't get away from the kids. I was a stay-at-home mom. My husband worked. I had to be the one at home. Didn't have parents coming to help, So we find creative ways to do that with your children still around.
Yes, Josie, I totally agree with what you and Vicky are saying, and I would like to add the word honor. If you think about it, of saying like, what do you need? You may just need 3 or 5 minutes sitting on the front porch in the sun. And if you are dismissing that, I want you to just think about, you have your own mental health to take care of, your own emotional health and your own physical health. If you do not stop and honor that, and you're always dismissing it, how are you going to feel mentally and emotionally about your decisions? And your mental and emotional health affects your physical health, just like your physical health affects your mental and emotional. So just think about it like that. I know it can be so difficult. I did this too. It's like, I don't have time right now. I'll do it later. Even like I walk by my front porch and go, I want to go sit out there. And I didn't. And then the sun would be setting and I'm like, I never got outside. But then the next day, the same thing and the same thing. It's like, if you just take that 5 minutes, it actually, I can promise you that it will give you back more than what it took away.
I want to piggyback on that against Michelle. I want to piggyback on that because time is a construct that we make. And so it's regardless, as I love how Rebecca just says that, maybe I just need 5 minutes to breathe or do this. And then whatever task I was going to do is only going to take 5 minutes versus the 20 I thought it was going to take. And so I think that's where time elements come in, is how long does it actually take us to do something? Well, when we're frantic and struggling to find something, or we lost our keys, that time period is now going to take us 25 minutes. Whereas if we were in the calm space, or if we'd given ourselves whatever that task would have been 5 to 10 minutes. And so that 15 minutes that we just lost from that frantic feeling can be given to that self-care time to make sure that we are in that frantic feeling less. And so then our daily tasks take less time, quote unquote time, because we're in the right mind frame to do them. And I think that's what we lose in this. And that's what we gain by doing the mindfulness and by figuring out what is going to rejuvenate us. Because when we are rejuvenated, things take us less actual minutes in the day to do them.
That is true. This is Catalina speaking. And I was thinking how many times we just stop asking for help when we become mothers. I guess we become like super mothers and we feel like we are on top of everything and we can do everything on our own. And that's a misconception, because that's actually when we should be asking for help and look around for help. I remember swapping babysitting when my children were small with other stay-at-home moms. And that will be like a wonderful thing to have some time for myself, even if it just was an hour. So I think there is plenty of help around. And if we just could take the time to look around for someone that can help us and support us, things will start making more sense to us, and we will find those 10 minutes or 5 minutes that might, that are so precious into saving our sanity and keeping ourselves connected to ourselves.
I can't believe it's almost been an hour already, ladies. We're running out of time. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to do our final wrap up. We're just going to go straight order of the panelists right now. So we're going to go Vicky, Catalina, Josie, Rebecca, Ren. We're just going to, again, we're looking at this idea of self-image and how do we as moms retake this back? How do we make our identities who we are? How do we do this more consciously? Because we've made unconscious decisions and then all of a sudden we wake up and go, who am I? What am I doing? Because we're not doing things with that intention in mind. And so I want to bring that back to each of you to give your final thoughts on this topic, however you want to do that. But, and then also let people know how they can get a hold of you after your final top comments.
So this is Vicky. I think it really starts with appreciation, appreciation for your body. Just think of, we women give life. I mean, that is such a beautiful miracle. And, it's such an honor to be able to do that. And our bodies are so strong, much stronger than we realize. And we are stronger than what we realize. So just appreciating ourselves, appreciating our bodies, looking at the positive aspects of ourselves and steering away from the negative, what's wrong and what I don't like. Well, what do you like? Focus on what you do like, what you do enjoy. I mean, gosh, I'm so thankful that I can see, that I can walk, that I can smell, just the basics. Start there. If you have a hard time, just start with the basics of just enjoying life, enjoying your body, and being so thankful and grateful for what you have. So the way that you can get a hold of me, I'm a traditional naturopath, but I'm also an emotion code, body code certified practitioner. So I help women to release trapped emotions that can lead to dis-ease or disharmony in the body. And so you can go to my website, vlb.life, and learn more about me there, schedule a session. And I do have a free gift for all the attendees that watch live, as well as other, recording attendees that you can get. And we will put that link in the description notes later. But it's 4 rituals for emotional release. And we all need that. We need to know how to release these emotions that we're experiencing throughout our life. So, yeah, I'd love to hear from you, and just think of love and appreciation for your body and your ability. So thank you.
Catalina?
Thank you. I just want to finish this part. I guess it was not mentioned, but it was mentioned indirectly. But the power of touch, of feeling into your body, really putting your hand on your heart, or feeling, putting your hands on your belly, and observing your breath. That is a very simple thing, but it's a very gratifying and rewarding thing. Your body likes it when it's touched. And it's something you can do with your children too, put your hand on each other's hearts or each other's belly and just feel into the breath and how that calms everything down and everything around you too. I think we can neglect to see the importance of touch and how touch is so important for our bodies. We do a lot of kisses and hugs with our children, but we forget that our bodies also need to be touched and hugged and kissed and felt into, especially if we have parts of us that are achy, like my C-section, right? Be tender, be kind with those parts of your body that are hurting for whatever reason, because of delivery or whatever reason. Be kind with them. Something that I really like to do with, and particularly with my body, and the parts that ache, I use a warm oil, and I like to massage those parts of my body that are achy or sore or tender for some reason. So just remember that you are just human. Your body is a soft animal. That's what Mary Oliver says, and it is very true. So, and as we said before, many people say before this tonight, that our children will learn that from us. We learn to appreciate and take care tenderly of their bodies as well.
Catalina, how can people get a hold of you?
There is people will get my link, and there is also I have my Instagram account. It's Cat Natalini on Instagram. So you can see my posts there. I normally post on things related to rest and sleep. That's my topic.
Josie?
Yes, thank you. So one of the biggest things that I have to say about this whole body image is to understand, as a woman, as a mom, we actually kind of are superheroes. We are, not kind of, we are. When you think about however you have become a mother, whether it be through your birthing of your own experience from your own body, or whether you become an adoptive parent, we have certain superpowers that really nobody else has, because we understand the importance and what it truly means to nurture and raise little people. It's a hard job. We're creating them, we're nurturing them, we're raising them, we're hopefully turning them into the people that they can step into their own authentic and beautiful selves that they are. And so coming at it from a point of love and compassion for ourselves, giving ourselves a little bit of grace, hugging our bodies, truly taking our arms and wrapping it around ourselves, and looking in the mirror each day to say, you are a superwoman, you are an amazing person. Or, say it to you, I am a superwoman, I am an amazing person. I am stepping into that and acknowledging that. And I'm also acknowledging that I have some moments of discretion, that I digress, or whatever the word is, that things that we don't like about ourselves, and embracing that too, because you need one to have the other. One of the things of gratitude is sometimes we need to be grateful for the yucky things that happen, because we can appreciate the greatness that we do have. Without the yuck, we don't necessarily appreciate the goodness. And so the whole message here is to take yourself as a whole and love yourself as you are. And if you need to lose 10 pounds in your mind, or 15 pounds, or 5 pounds, or you want to change your hair color, or you want to, there's something that you want to change about yourself, embrace it from a period of love, or from a heart of love, not from a place of disgust, because that negative energy breeds more negative energy. And I'm sure, as Vicky can associate with, I too work on emotions and the mindset and the power of emotions and our physical dis-ease or disconnect. When we come at things from a negative point of view, not only do our children see that and become more negative, but we also suffer that inflammation in our bodies, dis-ease, disalignment. So my whole message is acknowledge that superpower woman that you are, step into that. And I'm offering a free 30-minute superpower strategy session for any guests who have been here, and they can get that with the link that we can include in the comments here, and just book it. It's a 30-minute complimentary session, and we can talk about what your superpowers are, because I needed somebody to show me that I was a superwoman once. And sometimes we need somebody else to help guide us through that when we're in the thick of it, especially when we have little ones at home still.
Rebecca?
Yes, so I would like to bring a couple of perspectives. So one thing to think about is, what about the perspective of showing up for yourself like a best friend? If you would imagine how a best friend would show up, if, I would imagine someone encouraging, someone who would be seeing the best in me and speaking into that and wanting to see that grow. Someone who might see a pitfall, would I want a best friend to tell me about that? So in other words, if you're showing up that way for yourself, you would be looking at it truthfully with the lens of how you would show up as a best friend for somebody else. Like, could you do that for yourself? And if that is difficult to do, or that's one way to sort of filter how you're thinking of what you're doing and making decisions, but also think about it as if you were speaking to your daughter. So whatever it is you're addressing, whether it's your own thoughts or decisions that you're making, what advice would you give to your own daughter as she's growing up and she's running her family, and you see that and you'd be like, well, what would I tell her? How would I want her to be? What would I want? You'd want the best for your daughter, right? So just those two perspectives, like put those hats on and just think about that for a minute. And what would you tell yourself based on what you would tell your daughter or you would tell a best friend? So those would be two perspectives that I'd like to offer out there. And I would say to get a hold of me, the best way now is I have an email, but I'm also offering a 30-minute mom clarity call. And what I do, I'm a life coach and aroma practitioner, and I help to identify and dissolve roadblocks that may be keeping you from showing up your best. So I would like to offer that mom clarity call, and I can put that in the chat.
Ren?
Hi, Ren Roberts here. And what I'm just going to add on that is a quick tool that you can take away. I wish I had known about this when I was going through adopting foster kids and all of that. And so this tool, you can use 2 fingers just like this. I know some of our panelists have mentioned they love breath work. So you put it right under your collarbone. Doesn't matter if it's above or below. And our panelists can even show us with this. So we put the right hand, and it has to do with your heart. And then we take 3 breaths. We call them candle breaths. So imagine you're blowing out a candle. So the kids like it too. But you're going to take a big breath and then. So you just take 3 breaths here. Then we're take 3 breaths here with our fingers like that. And then at the end, we tap right on this karate chop point, and you tap in some affirmations. And I always like to go with, I am calm, I am confident, and then I am whatever it is that I really want to overcome. So if there's an issue with the kids, I've used this like in my real life now. I've been stung by a jellyfish, used it to calm myself in that moment. So business, personal life, use those breaths. Just like, yeah, it is like the form of tapping. And so it's amazing. So those 3 breaths, so we've got them here, and then we do 3 breaths here, and then tap in how you want to feel. So with that, you can overcome whatever you're looking in the mirror and not feeling right, or that coming off balance. Let's bring you back and remember those. And I call that the aligned breathing. So we'll leave you with that. I have a Facebook group. The links will be around. It's facebook.com/groups/your YOUR FFJ for financial freedom and joy. So I look forward to seeing you in there. There's also a virtual gift basket for mompreneurs, and the link will be there as well. Back to you.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming on today. And the final notes I want to leave you guys with is that this is a constant process. I loved how someone once said is with working on this stuff, it's like we just want to be one and done. Well, it's kind of like the way they worded it was like trying to take a shower so well that you never have to take a shower again. And so it is a constant process. But the big but I want to put in there is so much more fun when we do it together. And so that's why I want to invite everyone to the Women's Circle next, where we do that work together, because it is a constant thing. But how do you want to do it? And we have to keep coming back to it. So even though we get our body into shape one moment, doesn't mean it's going to stay that way if we don't keep maintaining it. And so it's how do we keep that maintenance going? It gets easier as we make better habits, but it's still a constant maintenance because this is our journey. And so do we want to do our journey alone, or do we want to do our journey together? I'm hoping you want to come join us together. And so on that note, we want to invite you to the next panel, which will be next month about being a mompreneur. And so we hope you will join us. We're working on whether it's going to be Thursdays or Sundays still. So we'll get back to you on dates and send all that information out, get onto our mailing list, and we'll be happy to do that. And so, but we also then invite you to the Women's Circle, which is a place for us to have those conversations together. And we're about to start that in just a few minutes. And we'll see you on the next Mama Genia podcast. Sorry, tongue tied tonight. Bye, everyone.